I don't know how many parents are here versus how many students. It's a little hard to tell just by looking down the list of names. But I'd like to, before launching into this first talk, state what my goals are for this week and maybe give a bit of an overture to all five of the talks that I'm giving this week. I don't know how many parents versus students I have in the crowd here, but I'm going to speak to students. And it's my hope that for all the parents and for all the teachers that are listening in, you can find some value in the advice that I have for young students about going off to college, and that you can appropriate whatever ideas you like from the talks that I'm going to give in giving advice to your own students or your own children about how to approach that first year in college. So that really is what I'm interested here. That's what I'm interested in, is this first year in college, how to think about the first year in college. Let me begin with one of my favorite sayings. I'm a great lover of proverbs. And this is a proverb that has gotten me through many sleepless nights and been a goad and a consolation as well at key moments in my life. And here it is. The truth will make you free, but first it will make you angry. What I want to do is give you some advice about going to college, first week of college, that will, I believe, I hope, make you free. But the advice that I have will probably also make you angry first. And that's because the advice that I have is going to often run contrary to those things about college that you're most looking forward to, the expectations that you have for college, which are the most enticing. I intend to give you some advice that might curb some of your hopes or your expectations for what is possible in college. And the first way in which some of the advice is going to run contrary to that is that you certainly get a lot of freedom and personal autonomy when you go off to college. But when I was looking forward to my time in college, I tended to overestimate how much freedom and personal autonomy I was going to have. And I told myself, since I was a very naive little child, that when you move out of the family home, you get to do what you want. And there are ways, I suppose, in which we could take that statement at face value, but it's really not true. And that's because no one gets to do whatever they want. If you read the book of Ecclesiastes, which is my favorite book of the Bible, you will find that Solomon, arguably the wisest and richest man who ever lived, did not get exactly what he wanted. Ecclesiastes regularly finds Solomon disappointed and frustrated with his life, despite having what appears to be all the money in the world, and really all the power in the world too, or as much power as any human being could possibly hope for. When you're young, you have time, but you have no money, and so you can't do what you want. And then you get older and you have money, but you don't have time, and so you can't do what you want. And by the time you have both time and money, your body has started to fall apart, and so you can't do what you want. So God has set up the world in such a way that nobody gets to do whatever they want, whenever they want. And so remember this, while you're putting your expectations in college, while you're building up your expectations and your hopes of college, that yes, you are getting a greater windfall of freedom between the ages of 16. From the time you go from 16 to 18, you'll get more freedom and more personal autonomy kind of thrown at you at that period of your life than in any other 2-year period of your life. You still won't be able to do whatever you want. Now, nonetheless, in what sense can you do what you want? Well, you've probably been thinking about this. I imagine that by the time you hit 15 or 16, the age of 15 or 16, you start thinking about all the decisions that you will get to make for yourself as soon as you leave your family home. Perhaps even your parents have been telling you all along, When you live under my roof, you can't do that. When you have moved out of the house and you have your own money, and you're responsible for your own life, then you can do that. And you've been sort of curating this set of plans of all the things that you want to do when the keys to your life are finally handed over to you and you can do whatever you choose. Now, this talk is on choosing a church when you go off to college. And when I say you go off to college, I'm assuming that some degree of additional freedom is afforded to you at the age, at the point of graduation and after graduation. And that you're going to leave the home, perhaps move out of the home even if you stay in the same town, or move a ways off. Or perhaps just at the age of 18, your parents have decided that even if you're staying at home, you get all of these new additional freedoms. So I want to speak to a classical crowd so far as college expectations are concerned. Many classically educated students are especially curious about the new possibilities that emerge for church attendance or for church membership in life outside of your family home. And you've been reading Augustine, you've been reading Dante, you've been reading Dostoevsky for a long time. And you've become curious about other church traditions. And you've decided that after you leave your family home, you're going to do a little exploring. You're going to a new town, so you have to pick a new church anyway. So you're going to do a little investigating into the churches that you know something about because you've read Catholic literature, Anglican literature, Orthodox literature, Presbyterian literature. And you finally get to decide where you'll worship on Sunday morning, and you want to explore the options. If you're moving away from home and you're going to a new town, you are in a very vulnerable position if you do not have a good plan for choosing a new church. And having kept in touch with a lot of former graduates and kept in touch with graduates who kept in touch with other classmates, I can tell you that there are many young Christians who do not survive the task of finding a new church after they leave their home. By which I mean the task, the problem of choosing a new church ultimately leads them to quit going to church altogether. And this is because they either don't have a plan for choosing a new church in college, or they don't have a good plan. So what I would classify as a bad plan for where you will go to church when you go to college is the plan to simply go wherever your friends go to church. This seems like a good idea. For a great many high school students, you want to believe, I'm going to make some good Christian friends when I go off to college. They're going to keep me accountable. I'm not going to be one of those Christians who loses my faith. I'm going to surround myself. I'm going to put myself in a good community. And I'm going to rely on my friends for spiritual accountability. So I'll just go to church wherever they go to church. This is a bad plan. This is an ineffective plan. This is a plan that I have seen many, many times go off the rails rather quickly. And that's because you don't know the friends that you're going to make when you go to college. You don't know how trustworthy they will be. You don't know how committed to church attendance they will be. And if you resolve to go wherever your friends go to church when you go off to college, if your friends quit going to church, or if your friends quit going to church for just long periods of time, then what will you do? Chances are good you will also quit going to church. You'll feel entitled or licensed to quit going to church. You also don't know the friends that you'll make in college, and I think this is worth considering. Plenty of us have friends. Plenty of us are friends with people who are worth being friends with. And yet we cannot entirely count on our friends to hold us spiritually accountable. If anyone is going to cover over for you, think about this, in school right now, sophomore year, junior year, if anyone's going to cover for you, it's probably your friends. Your friends are the most likely to interpret your sin and to judge your sin leniently, to let you get away with things. As Aristotle says, your friends are people that you do not fear to sin in front of. So if your plan is for your friends to hold you accountable, you don't really have, I don't know that you have the strongest base of accountability when you go off to college. The other thing I would ask you to consider is that even if you do have friends, friends who are enjoying their new autonomy, their new freedom, I would wager that a great many of crowds of people in college that are picking new churches are picking churches that are like themselves in a demographic way. Young people are drawn to churches that are heavily attended by young people. And so if you're already gone off to college and you're living on a college campus, and you allow your young friends to choose a church, and your young friends gravitate towards a church that also has a lot of young people in it, you're going to cut yourself off from old people. You're going to cut yourself off from established families. You're going to cut yourself off from a community that is rich with little children and old people and solid families. And you're going to enter into a situation in church that's very much like the situation you're in on your college campus. You're just surrounded by this ocean of young people. And I think that being surrounded by people that are only your age, whether you're in your 20s, whether you're in your 50s, that when you're surrounded by people that are your own age, certain delusions set in about what is normal. And if you want to remember what is normal, if you want to stay in touch with what is normal, you need a normal range of people in your life, which means a church that has a lot of kids, a lot of old people, a lot of married people, and some young single people. You've already got plenty of young single people at the college that you go to. Don't deprive yourself of regular communion with a range of people. Like, be around babies, be around the elderly, lest you lose touch with reality. As opposed to showing up in a new town and opening up a directory of churches and choosing one that looks attractive to you or is intriguing to you, I would suggest that you choose a church to attend before you even show up in your new town. And I would advise you to choose a church that is in the same tradition of the church that you are in right now. Thus, if you go to an Anglican church now and you're moving away for college, go to an Anglican church whenever you move. If you're in a Presbyterian church now, go to a Presbyterian church wherever you move to. If you're in a Catholic church, go to a Catholic church wherever you move to. Now, I am not suggesting that you have to stay in this church forever. I am saying that you should transfer your Sunday morning loyalty over to a new church that is, or a separate church that is in the tradition that you're currently a part of. Now, this does not mean that switching churches is an illegitimate move or that you're stuck in the church that your parents raised you in. However, if you're going to look for a new church, do not look for a new church on Sunday mornings. Look for a new church on Wednesday evenings. Your regular, predictable attendance at a church, everyone there should know that they can expect you on a Sunday morning, should be reliable, and it should be stable. It should not be a game of Russian roulette where no one knows where you're going to show up on Sunday morning because you're looking. Your membership, your regular attendance should be reliable. So continue to just begin going to wherever you currently go. If you want to look for a new church, fine. That's a legitimate thing to do. But I'm going to take it for granted that in your first year of college, you probably need more church in your life, not less. So as opposed to looking for a new church on Sunday morning, look for a new church on Wednesday evening. Go to midweek services and let that be the time set apart for searching out a new church. If in the course of the Wednesday night investigations you make into new churches, you find another church that you would like to transfer your membership over to, or maybe not even membership, just to transfer over your reliable and dependable attendance, then make that decision. And let the people of the church that you were attending know, well, I'm going to this Anglican church now. I'm going to this Catholic church now. I'm going to this this OPC church now. I'm going to this PCA church now. So that they don't simply think of you as lost out there in the ether of college. They know that someone is keeping track of you. They know that someone is responsible for you. And attend that church on Sunday morning until you feel the need to look again on Wednesday nights. But this will get more church in your life, for one thing. This will put you in church twice as often if you're truly looking for a new church. It's also going to keep you from being aimlessly wandering from one church to the next. If looking for a new church requires more of you, not less, you will put more thought, you'll put more deliberation into the churches that you're trying on a Wednesday evening, as opposed to the shotgun approach, which is what often leads students to ultimately dissolve their interest in church. They go to one, then they go to another, then they go to another on a Sunday morning. They're always asking, does this measure up to my standards? They become convinced that there's some kind of perfect church out there that suits all of their needs. They never find it, and ultimately they quit looking. So it's in an effort to keep you from that kind of despair, this despair of looking and looking and looking, aimlessly wandering, and then ultimately giving up the search, that I suggest that you simply go on Sunday morning, that you make a commitment before you even show up on the campus, before you even leave your family home, to simply attend wherever you currently go, and to do your looking, to do your picking on Wednesday nights. I will be back tomorrow afternoon to say a little more about life in that first year in college. Thank you very much, and I'm going to hand it back over to Matthew.
Mr. Gibbs, thank you very much. That was great. And I'm very appreciative, as I'm sure all our participants are. So I'm going to now, once again, get out of the way because we've got Coburn. Is it Doloff? I don't want to pronounce your name incorrectly.
Oh, close enough. That's basically it.
Okay. And is that Sarah next to you?
We got Jessica Hooten-Wilson.
All right, we got Jessica Hooten-Wilson. Amazing. This is great. So I'm going to spotlight you guys and I will mute myself.
We're trying to blow it up so we could see ourselves.
There we go.
All right, thank you guys.
Thing going on.
The floor is yours.
Thank you
Thanks.
so much. Thanks so much, Matt. My name is Jessica Hooten-Wilson. I'm the Fletcher Jones Chair of Great Books at Pepperdine University, and I'm only going to be joining you for a few minutes because my job here at Pepperdine is actually to teach Great Books classes. So I'm in the middle of teaching one right now. And I wanted to make sure that I got a chance to join you because I wanted to talk about Pepperdine and also get to hand it over to Kobe to interview students. I thought instead of just sitting and listening to me talk, it would be more informative and probably better for your experience if you were able to hear from students themselves about what it's like to be at Pepperdine and to be in our Great Books program. Our Great Books program right now is currently 4 to 6 classes that you can opt into. It is somewhat of an honors for everyone situation in which you don't have to have a certain score to get required to get into. It is not merit-based. It is if you have the desire to be in this program in which we look at the history of the world, the ancients to the contemporary, and you really get to understand the 4,000-year history discussion that took place before you, then you are welcome. We have Socratic seminars. We discuss around the table. Probably a lot of you from your classical world, it's very familiar kind of education. These maieutic seminars in which you ask the big questions about what does it mean to be a human being? What is the relationship between individuals and society? What is love? We do a lot of that. And if you think you've already done that because you've done it K through 12, you haven't, right? Everyone knows who reads the Divine Comedy. You finish Dante's Divine Comedy and it's like, oh, now I get to read the Divine Comedy. So congratulations on getting started with your Great Books education K through 12. Now it's the time to dive in deep and really get immersed in this world, in this conversation, and make sure that you learn what it means to love what is worth loving, which is what we prioritize here, right? To learn to love what is worth loving. William Wordsworth said, what we have loved, you will love, and we will teach you how. I would say that's kind of the motto of education at Pepperdine, is that we really emphasize how do we teach our students to love what is worth loving here. I was formed by this education. This is actually my alma mater, and we are currently sitting at Pepperdine campus. So you see the ocean in the background. We are on the ocean. We also are in the mountains. So on any given day, you can climb up the mountains or go down to the ocean. We're right here. But this is the education that formed me into the person that I am. And it's been a huge honor and a privilege to come back here after being at several other schools and get a chance to teach in the same place that made me who I am. With that, I'm going to actually hand it off to a former student. So Coburn Doloff, I taught him at John Brown University. I was there for about 10 years and had the privilege of teaching Kobe, who then went on to University of St. Andrews and was able to get his degree there, then taught at a classical school. I'll let him introduce himself fully, but now he is teaching here, and he's part of this mission with me, teaching in the classroom and getting to teach my students. So welcome, Kobe. I'm going to hand it off to him. I'm going to go teach class, and I'm sorry that I'm going to miss the opportunity to spend more time with you, but he's going to interview a couple of my students, and so I'll let them have the chair.
Okay.
Blessings all.
Thanks, Jessica.
Bye.
Virtual round of applause. Well, yeah. So as Jessica said, it's such a joy to be with all of you here, and students, staff, anyone else that we have joining for the virtual college fair. Just definitely a blessing to get to share some time with y'all. Like Jessica said, and is our volume any better? I know that we had some problem with it. Can everyone hear me? It looks like, yeah. Looks like sound is good. I see a message. Okay. It might be just this directional microphone. We got to make sure we try and speak into it maybe. But like Jessica said, this is kind of a cool thing for me because I was thinking a little bit about, most of you are probably familiar that the idea of teaching in the classical liberal arts world, there's a saying that goes around that the teacher is the curriculum. And I think this is really true. Curricular choices matter, but who you're being taught by and who you're being shaped into, I think, are often very similar things. And so a cool thing to me as we think about all of you who are here considering Pepperdine as an option for your future college career, is to me to think about the downline that's kind of present on this call, because you'll hear a bit more in a minute when I interview some students. But at the Pepperdine Great Books program, you heard Jessica say she was an alumna herself. Two of her former professors are actually still teaching here, Michael Gose and Paul Contino, who are both brilliant. And then I'm here as a former student of hers now teaching at Pepperdine. And then we have a couple students here who get to learn from Jessica, who I've also gotten to teach a little. And so there's just a really cool kind of baton that's being passed out here. And so there are a lot of beautiful things about Pepperdine. There's the campus. We spent a ton to get this green screen set up to make it look like you're on a beautiful, no, this is real. And people will often say, oh, they'll come to campus and say, how do you get work done around here? And I think that like there's some truth to that, but I think more of the reality is that, as probably most of the students on this call understand, beauty is something that calls us deeper into the pursuit of truth. And I think that that's true in a very real way here at Pepperdine. And so, like Jessica said, I don't want to sit here and blabber myself forever. I think what would be a lot more meaningful is if you all get to hear kind of boots on the ground, what is student experience like here at Pepperdine. And so with that said, I would like to invite, we've got a couple students to interview here. And so I've got my first one, Victoria. And so I don't know, Victoria, do you want to just introduce yourself, where you're from, what's your background? How did you end up at Pepperdine? Just kind of some of that background material. Maybe what were you thinking about when you were going to college fairs and virtual college fairs and those sorts of things? What was your path to get here?
Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm Victoria Salasan. I'm from Long Island, New York, and right now I'm a junior at Pepperdine. My whole life I grew up going to public school, and I actually wasn't very used to the Socratic seminar style of teaching that they do in Great Books. And so I'm a Regent Scholar at Pepperdine, and so I was put into the Great Books program. And from the first class, I loved it. I was like, wow, like I've never had a space where I could just openly like communicate with my teacher and like students, and we're just like all entrenched in this conversation. It's like the professor is there, but they work as the facilitator, and it's just like really the students like running the conversation. And it's so amazing to see like we all have our own individual experiences that shape us into the people we are. And it's so cool to see how like someone who I see at the CAF and how their experience how their personal experience shows up academically in that space. So like we're reading all of these classics and all these amazing books, but it's like through it's our lived experience that book is like filtered through our lived experience, and it's so cool to see how like every different person can interact with those types of books. So yeah, Pepperdine, it was amazing. The moment I visited campus, I knew that this is the school that I wanted to go to. But beyond the beauty of Pepperdine, I would say that actually my favorite part about the school is my education that I'm actually pursuing. Like when I think about Pepperdine, what makes me happiest is the classes that I've taken and the professors that I've had. I feel like even it's hard to have a bad day on campus, you know, because of how beautiful the school is. But at the end of the day, when I wake up in the morning, I'm so happy that I can come here and pursue this education and talk to my classmates and just learn from these amazing professors like Dr. Hooten Wilson, who was just speaking.
Thank you. I would love to hear in particular. You already started to talk a bit about the Great Books program, Victoria. But maybe any particular experiences, certain books, certain professors, lessons that you learned, ways that you grew in wisdom or virtue. Um, there really is quite the gamut of books that you guys go through if you go through the entire Great Books track at Pepperdine. So maybe some highlights there, some
Yeah.
specifics.
So definitely Great Books 2. I think I'm now in Great Books 4, so I'm kind of at the end, unless if you're going to pursue a Great Books minor, you would go take a few more classes. But right now for the colloquium, I'm at the end of it with Great Books 4. And I would have to say that my favorite Great Books class that I've taken was Great Books 2. And that was more focused on like Christian literature. We read like St. Augustine, Martin Luther, Calvin, like all those types of thinkers. And I feel like that I loved it because I was able to connect with it the most, being Christian myself, just reading someone like Augustine and realizing that the same thing that he's experienced, like I'm experiencing, and like that is the whole point of this education. And going back to the classics, it's like, yeah, we're in the modern age, but we are all informed by what came before us. And I feel like being in Great Books made me realize how important it is to really go back, because it's just setting the way for us to go forward. And so I frequently think back to like Augustine's confessions and like things that he's dealt with, and like think about my own personal like faith and how that has impacted me in that way. But then also coming and looking at it as an academic and seeing how he's been impacted by the people before him and how he's impacted people like past him. And so I feel like that work has a very special place in my heart. It did a lot for my own faith story and just got me really deeper into my own faith. So it's funny how class can actually impact you personally in that way. So I love that. And then I really liked Great Books 3. We were talking about a lot of philosophers like Descartes, Emerson, and I just felt I'm an English major at Pepperdine, and I felt that that class was so good because it impacted so much on my other classes. And like even I'm taking right now an American Lit class, and we talked about Emerson in that class, but we read like an excerpt of him. And then I remember reading Self-Reliance in my actual Great Books class, and I had so much more to contribute. And I felt like I could speak with authority about like the things that we were talking about as a class. So I just feel like the Great Books education is so good because it gives you this like literary literacy that you can carry through whatever space you're in. Like people love books and people are always talking about books, and the classics are very important in our modern age because it's affected everything. So just being able to talk to those things is super important, and I feel like it's really shaped me as not only a student but as a person.
So good. I would love to zoom out a little bit, Victoria. And so we've talked about the Great Books program in particular, which I'm sure with the kind of audience we're working with CiRCE Institute probably would be something that a lot of these students would be interested in. I would love to hear kind of more broadly also about your Pepperdine experience. What has community life been like? Church life been like, as Josh Gibbs was talking about a little bit earlier? Communal aspects of campus. What are you doing on the weekends? Have you studied abroad? Kind of any of those sorts of things. What has made your Pepperdine experience distinct, kind of at a broader level?
Yeah, I mean, I remember when I was coming, the reason why I picked this school, I remember on my tour, the tour guide, who I'm actually friends with now, she had said something that stuck with me. She was like, wherever you decide to go to school, just think about who you're going to be when you leave that school and make your decision based off of that. And like, obviously, I'm sure many of the students on this call, like, we all have many options and very good students, and I had a bunch of different options being from New York, like a lot of schools in New York, but I came and visited Pepperdine, and I was like, this is the place that I'll be proud of myself when I leave. And I feel like Pepperdine has like that is what's been the experience for me. I feel like every single year at Pepperdine, I've grown into like the best person that I can be, and I continuously see myself growing. I had said originally that I'm from in New York. I had gone to a public school, so this was my first time interacting with like religious in the space of like religion in education, and it's been so transformative, I think, for my personal life, and just like it's just been so amazing. Like I really do love it. It's like before tests, professors will be like praying over the students, and there's just something that like is so invaluable about that. And like moving forward, like even when I think about like my children in the future, like I would love to have education and religion like together, like how Pepperdine is a Christian university. With that being like a Christian university, I feel like the community has been so amazing. Like from the professors to the students, like there's always someone there for you, and I just feel so loved and included at this school. And it really is so amazing being so far from home. I don't even feel that far because I have so many people on campus to like rely on and lean on. um, and no matter like what religion, whether it be Christian, Muslim, like whatever you are, it's like as the Christian school, I feel like they hold the values that we hold are so transferable, so that the love, the kindness, the being there for each other, like I feel like everyone, especially like even me myself, like everyone feels included in this environment, you know, because it's based in love, and everyone wants everyone to have a great experience. So I really do feel like Pepperdine was the best place for me. And every day that I wake up, I'm like, yeah, I made the right decision. I would never choose any other school but Pepperdine.
It's awesome. And I think that's something I would speak to in particular too, is one thing that I've loved about being a part of the student and faculty culture at Pepperdine is that it's a place that I think is truly and distinctly a Christian university, and you can feel that in the way that things come through in the classroom and the worship environment on campus, and the deep Christian mentorship and discipleship that's available. And yet it's a place where there is plenty of real disagreement, and where in classrooms I feel like my students are very free to express when they disagree with one another. There's Socratic dialogue. And I think in a real sense, so George Pepperdine, all the way back when he founded the institution, had an opening speech to the students that I think is pretty profound. And he said at one point, "We want you to see in teaching and practice the Christian way of life. We don't compel you to accept it, but we want you to know clearly what it is." I mean, I think that's something that still is really reflected in the Pepperdine culture. We have students who are kind of coming from all walks of life and all backgrounds, but in the kind of deep, robust Christian liberal arts education we provide, they really do get a sense of what is this deep Christian life all about. There's a thing called the Pepperdine Affirmation Statement that I love, that is sort of what are the things we as a university abide by, and one is that truth, having nothing to fear from investigation, should be pursued relentlessly in every discipline. And earlier on in the affirmation statement, it says that truth is distinctly revealed in Christ. And so because we believe that truth is revealed in Christ, that the truth belongs to God wherever it's found, we in every discipline are free to disagree and grapple and help one another pursue the truth. And I think that's very true boots on the ground in our classrooms here at Pepperdine. I would ask Victoria one more question for you. Obviously, I think on this call, we would love if everybody ended up coming to Pepperdine, but I think it really is truly an individual calling and vocation thing. And you all I was thinking back as Victoria was talking, going, what was going through my head when I was picking a college, not that many years ago, but a few years ago. And there's so many questions involved in that. And so what I would love to hear from you would be, as students are thinking through majors, colleges, university environments, those sorts of things, if you could go back and talk to yourself at 17 or 18, what would you tell yourself, whether that's reassurance or advice or what have you?
Yeah, I think for me, what it was whether it be Pepperdine, whatever school you end up choosing, you need to follow your heart, and like the feeling that you're getting, you need to stick with it. Like being from New York, like no one from my school went to California, like that was not even heard of. So off of my idea, like everyone was like, wait, this is kind of crazy, like why would you do this? And despite all of that, I just felt a calling to California, and I was like, this is where I'm supposed to be. And I remember Pepperdine was actually the last tour out of my California schools. I went to USC, UCLA, all those schools. And I was so sad because I was like, wait, I don't think I'm going to be in California. Like, I didn't connect to any of these schools. I actually really don't like it. And then my final day before I went back home, it was Pepperdine, the tour at Pepperdine. And as soon as I stepped on campus, it was just insane. Like, I just felt this, like, sureness, like this is where you need to be. And that day I like signed everything I need to sign. I committed to Pepperdine. And just that feeling and just like following my heart, no matter what anyone said, like, oh, it's so far, all this stuff, I was just like, no, I know this is where I need to be. And I feel like following that has been like the best decision of my life. And even now, like I started off at Pepperdine as a math major, and actually the Great Books series that I'm a part of, I was just like, whoa, I actually love writing and I love the readings that we're doing, and it actually made me change my major to English. I'm an English literature student now, and that same feeling I felt with coming to Pepperdine is the same feeling I felt with changing my major. So I just would really say to just stick with how you feel, and you know yourself the best, you know. So whatever is calling to you, whether that be Pepperdine or whatever other school, do what your heart wants to do, and also remember the person you're going to be when you leave, because this is only 4 years, but like I feel like everyone in this room is a living proof of the fact that the experiences, even if it's for 4 years, they can direct how you go in life. And even the fact of Dr. Wilson coming to Pepperdine and now and going elsewhere and then coming back to Pepperdine, it's just like, wow, we are all tied to the place that we choose. So although it's 4 years, it will have an impact on your life. And just remember that you want to be the person you leave. The person you are when you leave is the person that you want to think about when you're making the decision. Don't think about the person now, but think about the person in 4 years and what they'll be happy with. So that's what I would say.
That's really good. Thank you so much, Victoria. I know you've got to get to class. Thanks for joining us.
That's of course.
So I've got, in just a second, I've got another student to interview for you guys. I think I want to break things up a little bit. I had a video that I was going to play at the end, but I think I'm going to play that now as a little break and then bring Will up. So I know Zoom calls, no one ever wants to say anything aloud and you're just kind of sitting there watching the screen, but I need, if I need a promise from you all, which is that if the video is not coming through correctly when I share my screen in a second, someone will like yell at me and be like, hey, we need some help here. So hopefully we won't have too many technical difficulties, and I've got a little video that should showcase a bit of Pepperdine campus, a bit of what life here is about, and the Great Books program in particular. And after that, I'll bring our second student up to interview as well. So my screen share should be going here. If that is not the case, if someone could let me know. Sounds like we're all good. So without further ado, here's this video that hopefully will play.
The Great Books is a human conversation that is happening through texts that are from the beginning of time to now. We are looking at the wisdom of the ages. What is the best that has been thought and said? And how can we have students enter into that conversation?
CiRCE says without your 3,000 years of history, you're living hand to mouth. And that is suggestive of what Great Books is supposed to give you, that 3,000 years of perspective.
I think the Great Books program is the collective answer to the question of why are we here? And it's the compilation of all those answers across history.
I would say Great Books is the class that really taught me how to think critically, which I think translated well to law school. But I think back on my time at the Great Books and with Dr. Ghost, the first thing that comes to mind is just the camaraderie that came out of it with Dr. Ghost and then with my classmates as well. It was just such a good time.
I was actually a Great Book student at Pepperdine, and I chose Pepperdine specifically because I wanted to be a Great Book student. To me, that's what college should look like. Sitting around a table with my professor, a book open, and getting to have questions and answers and dialogue about the things that really matter. What it means to be a human being, who is God, what is free will and its relationship to our destiny.
No matter what your perspective, you can build on the Great Books program meaningfully, whether it's career or further education or other serious intense dealing with life's issues about justice and truth and God, good and evil, and human nature and all of that stuff.
Giving me the tools to start approaching literature and all texts in a more substantial way, a lot of nuance, and it gives me the opportunity to interact with other people who want to do the same thing.
Great Books has changed my life because Great Books has taught me how to live. And I think the Great Books program was a perfect form of exploration of the deepest fundamental points of human thought.
These are the greatest books that have ever been written, and they will shape you and transform you in a way that you cannot quantify. It is something you have to actually experience to understand. The Great Books are something that's not an educational choice, but it's something in which you learn to be the good earth in which things can really take root and you will bear fruit in your life.
Okay, I hope that played properly. I'm biased, but that video always gives me chills. I hope this so far has given you a little bit of a picture of life here at Pepperdine. I was kind of reflecting as the video was playing and kind of seeing all of these faces who have been significant in my life, whether that's students I've taught, Jessica, who's a mentor for me from years back, Paul Cantino, who's now he's been at Pepperdine for like 40 years and he's a mentor for me as a colleague. Um, some people on this call, I'm sure, are probably familiar with the Brothers Karamazov classic novel, one that we read in the Pepperdine Great Books program. And I was thinking about the very end of the book, if you're familiar, ends in a way that I think is probably surprising to a lot of people, which is that what one of the main characters does, much like Jesus in his final acts of his life, is to establish a community of friends. Um, there's a Kurt Vonnegut interview I remember that always kind of stuck with me, the great novelist Kurt Vonnegut, where he gets asked, "What should young people be doing with their lives today?" Big question, right? And that's probably something that many of you are thinking about. What should I be doing with my life? And he sits and reflects for a second. And he kind of makes a little joke. He says, "Well, many things, obviously." But then you see him kind of get thoughtful and pensive, and he goes, "But perhaps the most important and the most courageous thing is to establish stable communities where the terrible disease of loneliness can be cured." And the air just kind of goes out of the room. Right. Where I think that is, especially in the modern world, alienation and loneliness from ourselves, from one another, from God. And this is something that for me, both at a student level when I was studying under Jessica, and then getting the privilege of being on faculty here at Pepperdine, I've seen is that the Great Books program in particular is this community where we're gathered around shared things. We're gathered around the true, the good, and the beautiful in such a way that forms lasting friendships, lasting mentor relationships, in a way that for me has just been truly a blessing to be a part of. And so that said, that's my intro because we get to introduce another friend to you, who's Will, who's also a Great Book student. So Will, come on up.
Hey everyone.
And Will, again, I would love, thank you for being here, by the way, taking
Thank
time
you
out of
for
your
having
schedule.
me.
I'm kind of getting to live my like dream as a like daytime TV host here with my little coffee cup. And thanks for being on the show. Will, I would love to hear a little bit of background for you. I think I heard a rumor that there's a shared connection between you and someone else on this call. A little
Yeah.
bit of background. Talk to me where you're from, what's your educational background, how'd you end up at Pepperdine and in the
Yeah.
Great Books program?
So yeah, I'm Will. I'm from Richmond, Virginia. I am a STEM major here at Pepperdine University in sports medicine, which is really interesting that I'd be on here talking about great books, science, great books. Really doesn't seem like there's a lot in common, but you'd be surprised. But yeah, also Professor Gibbs, who talked earlier, he was a professor of mine back in high school. I went to a classical Christian high school. And that was a great experience and honestly really led me towards this school as well.
It's awesome. Will, I'm going to go a little bit opposite order here. If you were prepping, I'm keeping you on your toes because I actually want to start 30,000 foot with you. And before we talk Great Books in particular, ask what has your kind of life been like at Pepperdine in total as a student, right? Whether that's social life, classes, doing the whole Great Books thing on the side while doing a major that's way different, study abroad, anything like that. When people call you from and they say, "Hey, what's Pepperdine like?" What kind of you say?
I mean, right now, the word that just comes to mind is opportunity. For being the school that we are, and our size, and the fact that you can talk to teachers like this and have really small connections, there's so many other opportunities that large schools have as well that this school also offers. And I've just been introduced to so many of those right now. I like the professor student conversations are just incredible. I've had so many of those, and they've really led me just more towards what I want to do later in life and the person I want to be right now. And it's been extremely transformative, and I absolutely love it. To talk about the social life, it's a small school, which you'd think, there might be some difficulties there, but there really is people from every walk of life just all around you. And you can really just like literally walk past the person, say hi, and you can start a friendship right then and there. And that's an incredible thing. You can find things that are in common between people, whether that's in your classes, sitting in the library together, things like that. And this community that we have here, I feel like is really tight. Like you can walk around the campus and see a dozen people if you've been here for, like a couple months even.
Hmm.
And that's just an extremely incredible feeling. You're known, and you know that there are people around you who are willing to just be there for you if you ever need anything, whether that's in your classes, emotionally, mentally, anything like that, spiritually as well. I feel like Pepperdine does a great job of offering a lot of spiritual development programs, whether that be churches, small groups, anything like that. And I think that's a huge thing that other schools don't offer necessarily in the same spectrum that we do. But then also, yeah, to talk about abroad, I was just abroad in Germany for the past couple months, and that was a huge formative experience. I got this shirt there actually, and going abroad was actually a huge part of forming me as a person. And I traveled East Coast to West Coast to come to this school, and then for some reason I decided to take it one step further and go out to Europe, and that was one of the greatest decisions
Kind
I
of going
ever
back
made.
the opposite direction.
I know, right? Yeah, I mean, just polar opposites, really. Um, because you gain this perspective on different cultures, and I feel like that ties really well into the Great Books program as well.
Yeah, how so? Talk to me about
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
That's good.
So let me explain. So the Great Books program really, for me, it has been this history lesson of how humans thought and how humans think now. And each book is kind of this puzzle piece that you piece together how humans think, what we've thought over time. And you really get to see the development of modern ideologies, even in these classes that are set hundreds of years before now. In these books that are hundreds of years old, you see the foundations that are laid on our current thinking, which is just incredible. And in Europe, they have different perspectives on things. They have different ideologies about the books that we read. And the book right now that we're reading, Brother Karamazov, that's a Russian literature piece, but it still influences the way that people in America think, which I think being able to draw that distinction and that connection as well is such a huge thing. And yeah, the Great Books program really also helps open up a door to seeing connections that you wouldn't otherwise see.
Hmm.
And even in STEM, I can even talk more about that. That is a huge thing for me, is just seeing in the science classes where you wouldn't think that literature has much to do with memorizing equations or chemical imbalances or physiology, but you really just gain this perspective on why is STEM, which is a really interesting question, and then it helps you kind of develop, okay, well, now we know why, so what if? And I think that's a huge thing that you can build on and really helps you kind of excel in your courses, whether that be STEM, English, theater, even all of those.
So good. And as Will was talking to, it reminded me of a stat that always kind of astounds me at Pepperdine. I'm kind of here to do a little bit of a commercial for you guys. So here's your stat. 87% of CiRCE students study abroad at some point during their time at Pepperdine. So that really is kind of a staple for us, is that we think that this idea of a global education, this idea that Will talked about of learning from other cultures and other way of doing things, it kind of widens your perspective. There's a Chesterton quote I always think of as well, where he says, the purpose of travel is not to set foot on foreign land, but to set foot on one's own country for the first time as a foreign land. And I think you kind of see your home differently when you return. You appreciate it more. And that's something that distinctly is a part of our Pepperdine experience, as we have campuses in DC, London, Heidelberg, where you were. We have a new one in Kyoto, Japan. We have a chateau, a castle, basically in Switzerland. If you go look up pictures of that, you'll probably come to Pepperdine. Look up Pepperdine Switzerland campus. It really is quite a blessing that our students get to experience. Will, I would love to hear from you as well. I've kind of got two questions for you here that you might connect or you might take separately. I would love to hear, in particular, in the Great Books program, is there a certain book or a certain idea that's been impactful for you? And you started to get into some of the connections between pursuing STEM as a career and how the Great Books have impacted that for you. Is there a particular idea or a particular moment where you saw that connection as well? Those might be two different answers. They might.
Yeah, I'll split them up, I think, but I mean, it was incredible for me. I came from a school where we had just finished reading the Odyssey by Homer, and I thought I'd really gotten a lot out of that book, and it just felt like I knew how to read that. And when I heard that was the first book in our curriculum, when I got to Great Books, I thought, all right, this is going to be a piece of cake for me. I already know exactly what this book is going to be about. but the depth and the just sheer amount of analyzation that the teacher, namely Professor Wilson, was able to go in depth about was just absolutely phenomenal, incredible. It gave me a whole new perspective on that book in a way that I didn't think was possible at all. And I really feel like that was the moment that I really knew I wanted to be in this program as well. It just changed everything about the way that I thought at this current time. And it's really just been something I keep building and building on. It's absolutely incredible. Um, but then, yeah, I mean, for me, it was really interesting. We've talked about Pepperdine being a Christian institution, but it's really interesting when we talk about the books that aren't by Christian authors and they have different ideologies and we compare and contrast. And I feel like that opens up a really healthy discussion to really test ideas. And that sort of Socratic conversation that starts is just something that I feel like I grow from the most personally. I know a lot of other people get the same kind of reaction out of because it's just so incredible to kind of test this real world ideas and theories right in the classroom, and you can have a discussion from someone who doesn't agree with you, and having those conversations that are sometimes difficult really lead to really fruitful results, and honestly has strengthened my bond with a lot of my classmates, which has been absolutely phenomenal. Yeah,
That's awesome.
And then to get into your second question, yeah, so I mean, can I pick out a particular topic? Might take me a little bit longer, but I will say that the whole way of thinking for me has been changed through great books, and that really has translated to STEM in the way where it's not just these like memorization, and it's not just these small like nuances, details, rules, exceptions, but it's more of a okay, this is what we understand now. How much more can we understand? And using our understanding now, what can we do with this information? And that is a huge kind of shift in approach that a lot of people don't take in STEM. But that's really been what's driving the future of medicine and STEM and engineering forward. It's just something that is integral to the way that humans should be thinking about things to get the most fruitful results. And that's been absolutely phenomenal, making those connections between the books that I'm reading, where you have to really get in depth and see all of these reoccurring details and these overall themes, and then connecting those to other things. And it's the spider web, I feel like. And in the same way, STEM kind of does the same thing, where it's these different things interacting with each other, and it all comes together into a full picture eventually. But it really takes a foundation, I feel like, for both, whether that's STEM or great books, to really come up with a great result.
And I think that's something that's as important now as ever. Um, I, if you're a person who knows you want to stay in the humanities and you want to study literature and you want to study theology or philosophy, Pepperdine has a great, robust home for that. That was more of my story when I was your age. I knew that I was going in those particular directions. I also love that Pepperdine has a great home for people like Will, who I think now more than ever, right, with the acceleration of technology and questions about artificial intelligence and what have you, I think we need the great books now more than ever, right? People who might be involved in making these big decisions about where things are going societally in different STEM topics, but who have actually been formed and shaped by the big questions about who is God and what does it mean to be a human being, and that we've actually thought about these things before just thinking what is the fastest or most efficient way, or what does the almighty dollar want. And so the fact that the great books program coexists alongside your STEM education, I think, is something really cool as well. Will, I would love to hear, kind of like we asked Victoria, if you could go back and talk to 18-year-old Will at Veritas. You're in Virginia, you're thinking, where should I go for college? What's my life supposed to be about? Am I going to move across the country and do this thing? Probably all kinds of questions in your head at the time. But if you go back, sit 18-year-old Will down and have a coffee with him, what would you say?
Yeah, well, it was a really interesting story for me to get here. I think it can really be summed up as a leap of faith. I mean, I had been on the East Coast my whole life. Really didn't make sense for me to come all the way out here. I had everything I needed. A bunch of friends that I knew were staying out there. No one was coming out to California. But there was something that I knew about this school, and that just made it so special. And I think it was just the fact that I knew the other schools I was thinking about were big state schools. You know, they had a lot of promise, but you know, I really love the idea of being in a classroom where you can talk with your professor. And that's a huge thing, is being able to know that you can walk into office hours and see these professors, and they not only are there for you, but they also care about you and your education. And it's this giving forward, I feel like, that the mentality that the Pepperdine teachers have. They want to give back to the students, what they learned in college. And that is something that's so huge. And for me, that was an absolute like green flag. And that's definitely something that really drew me here. And I also just felt called. It's a Christian school, and with that, I just wanted to be surrounded more by people who knew about the faith more, and who could challenge my ideas, and who could build up from the rickety foundations that I had, create more stable foundations, then also go from there. And that was just something that I really like, was just so enthralled by, and really convinced me to come here.
Really cool. And I thought that was going to be my last question. I just have a little follow up, which is, I know obviously like going to Veritas, you already had a pretty strong foundation in the humanities and in the liberal arts, great books approach to things. So what has it been like for you? I know in some ways for us who think of who think about, okay, what should Christian education and liberal arts, classical education in particular, be at the K through 12 level, at the college level, people like Professor Gibbs, people like Professor Hooten Wilson, myself. Um, there's this question of, if we're actually building the foundation K through 12, then okay, should we be doing something different in college? How should these interact? So for you as someone who had this kind of a background already, what's it been like kind of going back and maybe rereading some of the same books?
Yeah.
Right? Has it just felt repetitive? Has it felt like, no, we're actually building in more than was there before? How's that been for you?
Exactly. So I guess that was kind of a drawback for me almost. I was thinking, oh wow, like the program that I'm seeing in front of me, they have a lot of the same books that I've already read. And so I didn't think I was going to get much out of it. And the same, like I was saying with the Odyssey, when I read that for the first time in college, at Pepperdine, as opposed to in high school, it just, the level of depth and the absolute just like analysis just creates this whole new picture. And I think the Great Books curriculum also does a great job of connecting the books and comparing them. In high school, I read the books, learned some fun facts here and there, but it wasn't the same when I got here. And you have these books in succession, and you can really read through them and understand, okay, this is what they were thinking at that time. This person was influenced by this person, and this connected and then led to this idea. And then it builds on top of itself over and over and over again. And I really felt like that layer of depth was absolutely incredible. And then on top of that, also the professors just really have the time and the attention of the students who want to be there to really teach material that is extremely important to just knowing how to live as a person, which is extremely important, and something that I feel like is really overlooked now in our modern day.
So good. And I think too, that's something that I've found as someone who's just like one decade or so down the line from you, is that like that process has been true for me over and over again, where these books, people have been arguing about them for millennia for a reason, right? You don't read the Odyssey once, Dante once, the Brothers K once, and go like, "Oh, I got it done and dusted. We'll check that off the list." It's amazing to me how every time I go through one of these books with a new group of students or a new group of friends, how much I learn from the book itself, how much more is still there, and how much more I learn from a particular group of students who maybe have insights on it that I never would have had myself. And so being a part of that kind of a community is really just a blessing. So yeah, I hope that gives you a little bit of a picture of what things are like at Pepperdine and in the Great Books program in particular. Some fast facts about the place. If you're not familiar, we're just outside of Los Angeles. We're kind of tucked in our own little bubble in Malibu, where you can be at the beach and surfing in a 10-minute walk, which is awesome. Great hiking in the area. You can be into LA in 30 or 45 minutes for concerts and exploring and these kind of things. So it's kind of a cool best of both worlds life wise. 87% of our students are studying abroad. So there's plenty of opportunities there. And I would say too, Pepperdine is on the sticker, right? Not cheap price tag wise, but I think something a lot of people don't know is that compared to our peer institutions, we're actually in the bottom quarter of total price paid by students. So even though the sticker price looks very expensive, the scholarships and grant opportunities available here are really robust. And so I would encourage you, if you're a student who you go, look, I wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth. I don't know if I could ever afford somewhere like Pepperdine. Don't let that be a barrier for applying here, because we have so many students who have found a way of making it work because of the scholarships that are offered here. And particularly for, I think, the kind of brilliant, hardworking students that are probably on this call with CiRCE, that's really going to be true for you. And so we would love if you want to explore further and see what Pepperdine is like. And so, yeah, that said, we've intentionally left some time here. We've kind of been blabbering at you for a while. So I would love to hear if people have questions. I think feel free to, there's not that many people on the call if you want to turn your mic on and actually voice something. Matthew, I don't know if people put something in the chat, are you able to read that aloud for us? I can do that myself.
Yeah, totally.
Okay, that's perfect.
Yeah, if you have issues with the mics, guys, just type in questions and I'll read them aloud if that helps.
Yeah. So we'd love to hear. Floor's open. We may not know the answer, but we'll do what we can, either from a institutional side or a student experience side. Would love to answer.
People should be able to unmute themselves too, but if you're not, just throw that in the chat box. Okay, from Chelsea, is the Great Books program open to all majors?
Yeah, I'll take this one. Yes, it is. And it's actually encouraged. So there's a general education course curriculum that every student at Pepperdine is required to take. And so with that, you have your basic communications class, your English class, your foundations of reasoning class. And those are some of the basic ones. There's also religion courses that you have to take as well. But the really cool thing about Great Books is that it's open to any major. And then also, it replaces some, if not most, of the general education courses that you have to take at this school. So for me, I opted into it. So I have to take about the same amount of classes, but I have way more time on my hands because I don't have to take all these specific classes. I have this one course I'm taking every semester, and that's been huge. And I just absolutely love the fact that they open it to anyone. And in addition, I'm also going for the Great Books minor, 2 extra classes, and I need the credits to graduate anyway. So I'm like, why not as well throw on a Great Books minor? And I honestly am really excited for the classes that I have to take after this. It's only 2 extra courses if you want to take the minor, if you're already taking the colloquium. So I think it's a great option, honestly, and a really bang for your buck kind of thing.
It's awesome. And the one thing I will add from sort of the institutional side, this is kind of inside baseball. Don't tell anybody. The views expressed in this program do not represent those of Pepperdine. Actually, I guess they kind of do. But we are in the process of likely before long expanding the Great Books program, where currently there's a minor offered or there's just the track offered that replaces some of your core curriculum classes. Hopefully before long, Lord willing, there'll be an expanded kind of package of offerings where you could also major in Great Books if you wanted, possibly even do a 4+1 master's thing. None of that is promised, but those are all kinds of the kinds of thing that the administration at Pepperdine is trying to move towards, because we really are leaning toward this being a key foundational thing that we're all about, is offering students this education. So there would kind of be the best of both worlds, where if you're like, hey, I want to pursue this as my main thing, it's available to you. Or if you're a student who's in something, a completely separate wing of things major wise, you still have either the track or the minor offered.
Okay, thanks. We've got another question from Christina. Would someone without a classical education background struggle to keep up at Pepperdine?
So I guess I can answer this. I think, well, my answer first off is no, you wouldn't struggle to keep up. I think one thing that I appreciate about the way that the Pepperdine curriculum is structured is that there kind of are on-ramps for everyone. Because as Will was talking about, right, the Great Books program is something you opt into. And so not all students are maybe like, hey, this is my whole thing. This is what I want to be a part of my whole time at Pepperdine. And even if you don't have a background there, I think that the Great Books program does a great job of on-ramping you. If you've taken Great Books 1, There's all kinds of students in there who don't have a classical background who are familiarizing with the stuff for the first time. And I think that actually creates a cool mix of people who maybe don't have previous biases or previous understanding of what the book is all about, and they're kind of seeing it with fresh eyes, and then the students who do. So in great books classrooms, there often is like quite a smattering there. And then I would also say some of the classes that I get to teach myself are core curriculum classes for students who don't opt into the Great Books program. I get to teach Foundations of Reasoning, which for our purposes is kind of great books in a box, right? You don't want to do the whole four-year program, but we still believe that this is a foundational, fundamental part of your education. And so I get to teach these freshman students who oftentimes, because they're not selecting to do great books, it often means, hey, this isn't their thing. They didn't go to a classical school in high school. And it really has been a cool challenge, but an amazing experience for me as a professor to see many of these students go from on my opening surveys knowing nothing about kind of these like classicalese terms about truth and goodness and beauty and what's wisdom and virtue and these sorts of things. Really starting at square one on these types of topics to then by the end of the semester really having a robust buy-in and hunger for more of this stuff. And so whatever background you're coming from, yeah, if you're wanting to love what is good and what is beautiful, Pepperdine's got an on ramp for you. Whether you're kind of going from a 0 to a 1 or you're going from a 4 or 5 and wanting to get up to a 10, you're welcome here. And I think we've got professors who are excited about helping you make whatever those next steps are, regardless of background.
Yeah. And I'll speak on that as well. I was quite literally 2 of, I think, 14 kids my first year who had a classical education background. I mean, people in great books, for the most part, do not already have that education. And I was learning things from them. They just have a different perspective. And I think that really allows for more of a healthy classroom atmosphere. And yeah, 100%, like to answer the question directly, like 100%, you do not need a classical education background to be in the Great Books program.
All right, thanks, guys. We've got a few questions that keep coming. So, is the Great Books program over the course of all 4 years?
So you can probably speak to this better than me.
Yeah.
How's it played
Yeah.
out in your actual scheduling?
Yeah, so since I went abroad, I am moving my classes around a little bit. So technically, if you want the colloquium, it only takes, I believe, 2 years, so 4 semesters of great books, for you to get the colloquium, and then 2 more if you want the actual. I think it's 3 more if you want the minor, which is honestly not bad at all. I mean, for the classes you're replacing, it's just an absolute steal basically for credits. And yeah, I mean, it's really nice to kind of know that I have, for me, a STEM major, all these other classes, and then my one great books class every semester. It's almost like I can come back home, to my great books every semester. If my other classes are just, all off doing other things, I just have my one solid foundational class throughout the entire time.
So most students, it does end up spreading basically throughout their 4 years, depending on how it lines up with your major.
Got it. All right, thanks. All right, so from Jill and Frankie, what areas of study is Pepperdine known for, or what programs are most popular?
Yeah, Will, what would you say among your friends
Yeah.
are most common?
Yeah, so we surprisingly for a liberal arts college, we have a lot of STEM. Most people go biology, but I'm pretty sure nationally ranked, we're highest in sports medicine. I think of all of our majors that we are for, and I've personally had a professor tell me that if they were to send their child here, they'd want sports medicine. But I've also like met a bunch of English majors, journalism, and a lot of business as well, and they're all in the Great Books program, and I think that's incredible too. But yeah, I mean, you can really get a good variety of majors. And then on top of that, I feel like also they each have their own opportunities. Like I've seen each and every one of them do really cool things with whatever their major is and have a lot of great connections. So I think that's also great. But yeah, if I had to pick out, I think the communications, business, all of that is extremely good. The theater, the English is also extremely good as well. And then also the STEM is honestly top notch for being a liberal arts school as well.
Yeah, I hear a ton of students who are, yeah, either sports medicine, business, I should also mention we just recently added a nursing program. So if you're interested in going into the medical field, you're either thinking pre-med things or you're wanting to go into nursing itself, that's available now. And yeah, like Will said, a lot of these students are doing great books as this thing alongside. So it is a pretty cool combination, I would say.
All right, thanks, fellas. We've got two questions back to back that are pretty similar, so I'm just going to read them both at the same time. So, first one from Manny Kim. Does Pepperdine tend to accept credits from local community colleges for core/intro classes? And then from EO, is Pepperdine open to transfer students from community colleges who are homeschooled through a Christian classical education and graduated early from high school? I guess sorry, let me see this. How competitive is it for a student like this? And I'll kind of piggyback on that too. Essentially, it sounds like could you transfer in with like an associate's if you graduate early or do dual enrollment as like a 16 or 17-year-old? So, yeah.
Yeah, I would say yes and yes on both of those questions, right? Like obviously there's going to be details as far as like how do the classes you've taken, do they directly line up with the things that are required for your major and those sorts of things. But from what I hear, our enrollment office is very open to working with students from a variety of backgrounds who are coming with community college classes or who have clept out or have kind of these various experiences. So yeah, we would have to speak to individual situations, but generally I found that there are a lot of students with those kind of backgrounds. I don't know if you have friends like that.
No, I agree. Yeah, I mean, they have really easy forms just to fill out to get credits transferred in if you wanted to do that. And they usually pretty easily just apply, which is pretty great. And yeah, I mean, we have a bunch of different people that I know personally who from a lot of different backgrounds like that, for example. And yeah, they've just absolutely loved the transition as well, as far as I'm aware. Like they've just fallen in love with the school, even though they were at, community college or what be it before this. So that's been really awesome to hear. And yeah, I hope we can encourage you in that as well.
Okay, thanks, guys. One of the follow-up questions was how competitive is it for a student? I guess for enrollment or to get in. Is it a pretty competitive enrollment process?
Yeah, I would say so. There's all kinds of weeds that I could get into on that as far as like
Yeah,
enrollment
but
numbers and like admission rates and those sorts of things. Um, I would say currently we have been accepting bigger freshman classes than ever. And so what that has meant is that enrollment or like admissions percentages, you are like more likely to get into Pepperdine right now than say 5 years ago. So if you're nervous about like ACT, SA scores or those sorts of things, it's actually like I would say it's a great time to be applying comparatively. Where I don't know your ratio of what's the reputation of the degree, if that's something that you care about, to like how likely am I to get in, is that a pretty good spot. It's certainly still a competitive school, but I would say yeah, especially for many of the students on this call who I'm sure have not only good scores and grades and what have you, but more importantly for us, who are the kind of students who care about learning, who care about the right things, who want to be leaders on campus. Those are the things we really are looking for. And so, yeah, if you're nervous about admissions rates, I would say please apply. Don't let don't let those kind of questions scare you. Fear of rejection scare you. I would say that you have a pretty good shot if you're the type of student who's on this call.
okay, thanks. All right, so we've got one more question. Oh, got another one now. Okay, so second to last question. What do the DC, Switzerland, and other Pepperdine Outpost universities focus on versus the main Malibu campus?
Yeah, so I don't know. I might go to you to talk Heidelberg in particular in a second.
Yes.
But I would say generally what's happening with these programs is that what's nice with Pepperdine is you have some schools where they might have a study abroad campus or two of their own, but largely they're just having to like outsource and send you to universities and partner with people and whatnot. And there's nothing wrong with that approach. What's nice about Pepperdine, I would say in particular, is that we do have all of these fully functional Pepperdine campuses around the globe. And so what that means is you're not messing with any sort of credit transfer. You're not wondering what's the quality of my education going to be while I'm elsewhere. You're actually going to have Pepperdine professors who have residencies in Heidelberg, who have residencies in Switzerland, who have residencies in DC. And so if you're like, hey, I want to get the experience, maybe I'm a poli-sci major, I want to study political science, and I want to actually get a little taste of what things are like in DC. I want to be in the swamp for a little bit. And yet I want to ensure that I still have the same quality and the same care that I would get from my Pepperdine professors. That's exactly what you get. And the credits still transfer in exactly because they're still Pepperdine classes. And so there's particular classes that are offered at particular campuses at particular times. And that's part of how students decide where they're studying abroad. And yet, even though you have the experience of you have your fellow Pepperdine students there, you have your professors there, you also get the experience of, hey, if I'm studying abroad in Florence and I'm taking a great books class or I'm taking an art history class, I can actually go look at the Duomo. I can actually take a trip up to Rome and see the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel, not just learn about it. And so that's a pretty cool combination. Will, could you maybe give us what this looked like in Heidelberg in particular?
Yeah, of course. So I had a lot of friends who went abroad. Some of them are still abroad for the full year. And so for my program particularly, the courses that you get to select from are a lot of general education courses and some upper division like humanities art classes. So I took an upper division art class to count for some of the credits that I needed to graduate. And I feel like that makes it really friendly for any major that wants to go abroad. They can really check off their general education requirements when you're out there, which is really great. And also, they particularly make the classes when you go abroad easier to kind of digest because you're traveling a lot when you're out there because you want to get the full experience. So I feel like it's honestly really great to go abroad and then know that like the classes, yes, you are getting the same Pepperdine credits, like professors who would be at the same level that they are here, and that's incredible. But then you also like know that you're in a new environment and they are going to adapt for that and they are going to let you thrive in the ways that you need to when you're abroad. Um, Switzerland, Florence, London, they all offer different courses too. So you can also sometimes grab upper division biology classes or upper division great books classes or even something.
Yeah, if you're a STEM person, at the castle in Switzerland, they've just built a fully functional science lab there on the grounds. So there's kind of a cool. That's a pretty rare opportunity.
Yeah,
I guess.
so and that's what's great too. They're constantly expanding, getting new equipment and everything like that to adapt to the students' needs. But then on top of that, there's abroad programs during the semesters, but then there's also abroad programs in the summer, and those are usually smaller. But there's one in particular that's happening in July, which is a great books curriculum course. So you can take your great books course abroad. This one particularly is in London, and that will actually be hosted by Professor Hooten Wilson herself, which is incredible. So, I mean, school's constantly giving you ways to take the courses that you need to in really beautiful locations, which is something that I think is just absolutely incredible. And yeah, if you can, definitely go abroad. Any of you who are ever interested in that at this school or another, it's an absolutely incredible opportunity.
And the last note I'll add, the way it lines up, students are usually studying abroad their sophomore year, not always, but that's typically how it lines up schedule wise. And so because that's such a big common part of the Pepperdine experience, it really is like well integrated into when your advisor's trying to walk you through what classes you need in order to get your degree, right? Because 87% of students are doing the same thing. It's not like they're like, oh, well, goodness, how do I incorporate these study abroad classes? It's very well integrated into the course of getting your Pepperdine degree itself.
All right, this is a pretty simple one. Does Pepperdine accept the CLT for admissions?
So big time.
I can actually speak on this. I did take the CLT and I was able to submit it as far as I remember. I hope they still take it. But that I felt like was also a huge component of my acceptance because they knew I came from this background that was it would do well in the Great Books program. I felt like that was something that was really good for me that I was able to show.
And it's fun. It's funny someone asked this because it's almost like you're giving me an opportunity to advertise. Because actually, so if you're a student who's taken the CLT, we really want you here, right? You are the kind of students. If you're involved in CiRCE, you're the kind of student who we really see as leaders in our classroom. Me as a professor, I would love to have you in class. And so that's why we take the CLT. In fact, we have like a big title level partnership with the CLT this year where we're sponsoring events together and these sorts of things. Jeremy Tate, who founded the CLT, is on campus this Thursday for a part of our President's Speaker Series. And so he's going to be here on campus talking about what's the future of Christian higher ed, what's the future of American higher ed. Him and Jessica, I help host a podcast for Pepperdine that he and Jessica are going to be talking together on Friday. And so all that, and so yeah, and those things are all broadcast. So if you're interested in hearing how Pepperdine interacts with CLT, the classical world, tune in, look at our social media this week, because it's sort of Pepperdine CLT partnership week. We're big fans. So yeah, thanks for asking that.
Yes, CLT is going to take over the world here in like 5 years. Here's a quick one I'll answer. Does anyone know if Josh Gibbs' session can be seen if missed? Yes. So just a quick announcement. It's been recorded. This is being recorded. So we're going to email everybody the recording of this, and it'll be posted on the website too. So you guys can watch Gibbs' sessions if you miss them. Another question. Do students feel less than slash left out if they choose to not do the Great Books program?
What would you say? How's that among your friends?
Absolutely not. I mean, it's really completely up to you. The people that I know who do take great books build a lot of connections through other majors that they wouldn't have otherwise. But the same also applies to all the English and communications classes. I mean, everyone has to take basically the same things, whether that's great books or these other classes. So, I mean, everyone just kind of chooses their path. And I mean, I have like majority of my friends do not take great books, but they're also finding other friends in these other curriculums. But then there's also a bunch of friends that I met in great books who I wouldn't have otherwise, I don't think, if I hadn't chosen that particular curriculum. So, I mean, it really like does not matter necessarily, but me personally, it just felt like more of a value thing, and it really made sense for me to want to pursue that. And I felt like the quality of my education would not be the same without the great books.
Thanks, Will. We don't have any questions left, but we got 5 minutes. If anybody wants to just throw in a final question, please do. Okay. Anybody at all? No pressure. Okay, I guess that's it for questions. Do you want to close us with anything?
Yeah, well, Matthew, I would just say thanks for having us. Students out there, again, I would just emphasize if you're involved in CiRCE, if you're in a classical background, even if you're not from a classical background, but you're the type of student who'd want to be on this call, I really do think Pepperdine is the kind of place where you'd thrive. I say this not as like some sort of an advertising point, but as a professor, it's a blessing to me to have students like you in my classes. And so, yeah, if you have any questions about what things are like here, please reach out. You can email me personally. I think my information is on the CiRCE website. Please reach out if you have questions about admissions or these kind of details. We have great people who you can email. And yeah, I would just tell you as you're going through the college discernment process, Pepperdine's a great place. And I know that it's a matter of individual calling, and that the Lord will get you where he needs you to go. I think back to when I was an 18-year-old and I was really stressed out about these kinds of decisions. And yet I think a lot of times there's a hand at work beyond the reasons we know or think that we're going to a place. God's got you. He's going to get you where you need to go. I think many times it's probably more of a right or left decision than it is a right or wrong decision. And yet I'll feel like it's a right decision if you come to Pepperdine. And so thank you for your time, and would love to help you out further however I can down the line.
Yeah, I really appreciate you guys doing this. This was great. It was really informative. So I'm really, really appreciative. And guys, if you have any questions and you're trying to reach out and you can't get in contact with me, you can also email me, Matthew at CiRCEinstitute.org, and I'll get you in touch with people at Pepperdine. Also go to the webpage for the event, and there's links to Pepperdine too. So yeah, don't hesitate to reach out. We want to help as much as possible in connecting you guys with Pepperdine and Jessica Hooten Wilson and Coburn and everybody else there. So yeah, thank you so much, guys. That's it. We're done for today. So like I said, reach out if you need to. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much, Pepperdine. This was a real blessing. So appreciate you guys a lot. And that's it. I'll sign us off.
Thanks, Matt.
Take care, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.